Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned. slain. An ally has been slain. been slain. An enemy has been slain. Quadra kill. Shut down. Enemy slain. Enemy double kill. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Rampage. Shut down. Shut down. An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed a turret. Has been slain. An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
We understand we live in a dangerous world. The enemies of freedom are real, and we need to be ready to defend.
It is now my privilege to introduce the first of this evening's speakers. We determined tonight's order backstage. I'm happy to report, no matter how the coin toss ended, our next speaker was going to say it was rigged. I was speaking, of course, about the Republican nominee, Donald J. Trump. There were actually some rumors going around that he wasn't going to show up tonight. He could say he wanted to keep us in suspense. We considered having a Donald Trump cutout on the dais, but if we wanted someone still lifeless, we could ask Charlie Rose to speak again. It is historic that Donald is here tonight. That's right, for the first time, the Catholic Church is not the largest tax-exempt landowner here tonight. We are honored to have Donald and Melania here tonight. The Al Smith dinner is a New York institution. The Donald, a kid from Queens, with a big heart and a big mouth, was without question a New York institution. Donald, the microphone is yours, and it's working.
Thank you, Al. Wow. That was good. This is a hell of a dinner. Well, I want to thank Your Eminence. This is really great to be with you again. We love it. Governor Cuomo, our great senators. Hi, Chuck. He used to love me when I was a Democrat, you know. Mayor de Blasio, wherever you are. Where's Mayor de Blasio? Huh? Hello, Mayor. Come on. See, in the old days, I would have known him very well, but I haven't been doing so much of the real estate anymore. And I want to thank Al and Nan Smith. Just a fantastic job you do with the dinner, and congratulations on a record. Over $6 million, right? Is their record. And a special hello to all of you in this room who have known and loved me for many, many years. It's true. The politicians. They've had me to their homes. They've introduced me to their children. I've become their best friends in many instances. They've asked for my endorsement, and they always wanted my money. And even called me really a dear, dear friend. But then, suddenly, decided when I ran for president as a Republican that I've always been a no-good, rotten, disgusting scoundrel. And they totally forgot about me. But that's okay. You know, they say when you do this kind of an event, you always start out with a self-deprecating joke. Some people think this would be tough for me, but the truth is, the truth is I'm actually a modest person, very modest. It's true. In fact, many people tell me that modesty is perhaps my best quality. Even better than my temperament. You know, Cardinal Dolan and I have some things in common. For instance, we both run impressive properties on Fifth Avenue. Of course, his is much more impressive than mine. That's because I built mine with my own beautifully formed hands. While his was built with the hands of God, and nobody can compete with God. Is that correct? Nobody, right? That's right. No contest. It's great to be here with 1,000 wonderful people, or as I call it, a small, intimate dinner with some friends. Or as Hillary calls it, her largest crowd of the season. Ah, this stuff. This is corny stuff. I do recognize that I come into this event with a little bit of an advantage. I know that so many of you in the Archdiocese already have a place in your heart for a guy who started out as a carpenter working for his father. I was a carpenter working for my father. True. Not for a long period of time, but I was for about 3 weeks. What's great about the Al Smith dinner is that even in the rough and tumble world of a really, really hard-fought campaign. In fact, I don't know if you know Hillary, but last night they said that was the most vicious debate in the history of politics, presidential debate, the most vicious. And I don't know, are we supposed to be proud of that, or are we supposed to be unhappy? But they did say that, and I'm trying to think back to Lincoln. I don't think they can really compete with that. But the candidates have some lighthearted moments together, which is true. I have no doubt that Hillary is going to laugh quite a bit tonight, sometimes even at an appropriate moment. And even tonight, with all of the heated back and forth between my opponent and me at the debate last night, we have proven that we can actually be civil to each other. In fact, just before taking the dais, Hillary accidentally bumped into me, and she very civilly said, "Pardon me." And I very politely replied, "Let me talk to you about that after I get into office." Just kidding, just kidding. And Hillary was very gracious. She said if somehow she gets elected, she wants me to be, without question, either her ambassador to Iraq or to Afghanistan. It's my choice. But one of the things I noticed tonight, and I've known Hillary for a long time, is this is the first time ever, that Hillary is sitting down and speaking to major corporate leaders and not getting paid for it. True. True. You know, last night, I called Hillary a nasty woman. But this stuff is all relative. After listening to Hillary rattle on and on and on, I don't think so badly of Rosie O'Donnell anymore. In fact, I'm actually starting to like Rosie a lot. These events give not only the candidates a chance to be with each other in a very social setting, it also allows the candidates the opportunity to meet the other candidates' team. Good team. I know Hillary met my campaign manager, and I got the chance to meet the people who are working so hard to get her elected. There they are, the heads of NBC, CNN, CBS, ABC. There's the New York Times right over there, and the Washington Post. They're working overtime. True. True. Oh, this one's going to get me in trouble. Not with Hillary. You know, the president told me to stop whining. But I really have to say, the media is even more biased this year than ever before. Ever. You want the proof? Michelle Obama gives a speech, and everyone loves it. It's fantastic. They think she's absolutely great. My wife, Melania, gives the exact same speech. And people get on her case. And I don't get it. I don't know why. And it wasn't her fault. Stand up, Melania. Come on. She took a lot of abuse. Oh, I'm in trouble when I go home tonight. She didn't know about that one. Am I okay? Is it okay? Cardinal, please speak to her. I'd like to address an important religious matter, the issue of going to confession, or as Hillary calls it, the 4th of July weekend with FBI Director Comey. Now, I'm told Hillary went to confession before tonight's event, but the priest was having a hard time when he asked her about her sins, and she said she couldn't remember 39 times. Nah. Hillary is so corrupt. She got kicked off the Watergate Commission. How corrupt do you have to be to get kicked off the Watergate Commission? Pretty corrupt. Hillary is and has been in politics since the 70s. What's her pitch? The economy is busted. The government's corrupt. Washington is failing. Vote for me. I've been working on these problems for 30 years. I can fix it, she says. I wasn't really sure if Hillary was going to be here tonight because I guess you didn't send her invitation by email. Or maybe you did, and she just found out about it through the wonder of WikiLeaks. We've learned so much from WikiLeaks. For example, Hillary believes that it's vital to deceive the people by having one public policy and a totally different policy in private. That's okay. I don't know who they're angry at, Hillary, you're right. For example, here she is tonight in public, pretending not to hate Catholics. Now, if some of you haven't noticed, Hillary isn't laughing as much as the rest of us. That's because she knows the jokes. And all of the jokes were given to her in advance of the dinner by Donna Brazile, which is, everyone knows, of course, Hillary's belief that it takes a village, which only makes sense, after all, in places like Haiti, where she's taken a number of them. Thank you. I don't know, and I don't want this evening without saying something nice about my opponent. Hillary's been in Washington a long time. She knows a lot about how government works. And according to her sworn testimony, Hillary has forgotten more things than most of us will ever know. That I can tell you. We're having some fun here tonight, and that's good. On a personal note, what an amazing honor it is to be with all of you. And I want to congratulate Hillary on getting the nomination, and we're in there fighting. And over the next 19 days, somebody's going to be chosen. We'll see what happens. But I have great memories of coming to this dinner with my father over the years when I was a young man. Great experience for me. This was always a special experience for him and me to be together. One thing we can all agree on is the need to support the great work that comes out of the dinner. Millions of dollars have been raised to support disadvantaged children, and I applaud the many people who have worked to make this wonderful event a critical lifeline for children in need. And that we together broke the all-time record tonight is really something special. More than 6 million net. The Cardinal told me that's net, Donald, remember. We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias, to defend religious liberty, and to create a culture that celebrates life. America is in many ways divided. Thank you. America is in many ways divided like it's never been before. And the great religious leaders here tonight give us all an example that we can follow. We're living in a time and age that we never thought possible before. The vicious barbarism we'd read about in history books, but never thought we'd see it in our so-called modern-day world. Who would have thought we would be witnessing what we're witnessing today? We've got to be very strong, very smart, and we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Eminence, Your Excellencies, members of the clergy, Alan Nance Smith, Donald and Melania, and all the distinguished guests. You know, earlier tonight, Al reminded me that when the first Al Smith ran for president, he chose as his running mate the progressive senator from Arkansas, Joseph T. Robinson, who was one of my husband's political heroes. This work that you do through the dinner, Al, you've done it now for 30 years, is such a labor of love. You've been a hero for both the children of the Archdiocese and for the city of New York. And I think we all owe Al Smith a great round of applause. This is such a special event that I took a break from my rigorous nap schedule to be here. And as you've already heard, it's a treat for all of you too, because usually I charge a lot for speeches like this. But for me, it was kind of ironic thinking about a fiery populist, Al Smith. If he were here today and saw how much money we've raised for needy children, he'd be very proud. And if he saw this magnificent room full of plutocrats celebrating his legacy, he'd be very confused. It's a special honor to be here with Your Eminence. Now, I know, Your Eminence, you were criticized for inviting both Donald and me here tonight. And you responded by saying, if I only sat down with those who were saints I'd be taking all my meals alone. Now, just to be clear, I think the Cardinal is saying I'm not eligible for sainthood. But getting through these 3 debates with Donald has to count as a miracle. So I guess I'm up against the highest, hardest stained glass ceiling. But Your Eminence, you do deserve great credit for bringing together 2 people who've been at each other's throats, mortal enemies, bitter foes. I've got to ask, how did you get the governor and mayor here together tonight? Now, I've got to say, there are a lot of friendly faces here in this room, people that I've been privileged to know and to work with. I just want to put you all in a basket of adorables. And you look so good in your tuxes, or as I refer to them, formal pantsuits. And, because this is a friendly dinner for such a great cause, Donald, if at any time you don't like what I'm saying, feel free to stand up and shout wrong while I'm talking. Come to think of it, it's amazing I'm up here after Donald. I didn't think he'd be okay with a peaceful transition of power. And Donald, after listening to your speech, I will also enjoy listening to Mike Pence deny that you ever gave it. I've had the privilege of being at the Al Smith dinners in years past, and I always enjoy it. But remember, if you're not happy with the way it comes out, it must be rigged. And it's always a special treat for me to be back in New York, a city that I love and which I think truly embodies the best of America. Don't you think? People look at the Statue of Liberty and they see a proud symbol of our history as a nation of immigrants, a beacon of hope for people around the world. Donald looks at the Statue of Liberty and sees a 4. Maybe a 5 if she loses the torch and tablet and changes her hair. Come to think of it, what would be a good number for a woman? 45. But I digress. Now, I'm going to try my best tonight. But I understand I am not known for my sense of humor. That's why it did take a village to write these jokes. People say, and I hear them, I know, they say, I'm boring compared to Donald. But I'm not boring at all. In fact, I'm the life of every party I attend, and I've been to 3. And when the parties get out of hand, as occasionally they do, it's important to have a responsible chaperone who can get everyone home safely. And that is why I picked Tim Kaine to be my vice president. Now, you notice there is no teleprompter here tonight, which is probably smart because maybe you saw Donald dismantle his prompter the other day. And I get that. They're hard to keep up with, and I'm sure it's even harder when you're translating from the original Russian. But every year, this dinner brings together a collection of sensible, committed, mainstream Republicans, or as we now like to call them, Hillary supporters. Now, some of my critics, and I hear that too, yeah, they think I only say what people want to hear. Well, tonight that is true. And here's exactly what you want to hear. This election will be over very, very soon. And look at this dais. We got Charlie Rose and Maria Bartiromo and Chris Matthews and Gayle King and Norah O'Donnell and Katie Couric. This counts as a press conference, right? It is great also to see Mayor Bloomberg here. It's a shame he's not speaking tonight. I'm curious to hear what a billionaire has to say. And look else at the dais. We've got the Honorable Chuck Schumer, the Honorable Andrew Cuomo, the Honorable Mike Bloomberg, the Honorable Bill de Blasio, the Honorable David Dinkins, and so many other wonderful elected officials. And we have Rudy Giuliani. Now, many don't know this, but Rudy actually got his start as a prosecutor, going after wealthy New Yorkers who avoided paying taxes. But as the saying goes, if you can't beat him, go on Fox News and call him a genius. So as I've said, we've now had our third and thankfully final debate. Sharing a stage with Donald Trump is like, well, nothing really comes to mind. There is nothing like sharing a stage with Donald Trump. Donald wanted me drug tested before last night's debate. And look, I gotta tell you, I am so flattered that Donald thought I used some sort of performance enhancer. Now, actually, I did. It's called preparation. And looking back, I've had to listen to Donald for 3 full debates, and he says I don't have any stamina. That is 4.5 hours. I have now stood next to Donald Trump longer than any of his campaign managers. Now, look, I have deep respect for people like Kellyanne Conway. She's working day and night for Donald, and because she's a contractor, he's probably not even going to pay her. But I think the good news is that the debates finally allowed Republicans to unite around their candidate. The bad news is it's Mike Pence. And it's been a long, long campaign. That should be one of our highest priorities, shortening the campaigns. And whoever wins this election, the outcome will be historic. We'll either have the first female president or the first president who started a Twitter war with Cher. And if Donald does win, it'll be awkward at the annual President's Day photo when all the former presidents gather at the White House. And not just with Bill. How is Barack going to get past the Muslim ban? Now, Republicans in particular seem frustrated with their nominee. Paul Ryan told the Republican members of the House, you don't have to support the top of the ticket. Don't worry about anyone besides yourself. Just do what's in your own best interests. So I guess Donald really has unified his party around his core philosophy. And I don't understand their unhappiness. They say Donald doesn't have any policies. He has no policies. I keep hearing that. I'd actually like to defend him on this. Donald has issues, serious issues, really, really serious issues. And I worry about Donald's go-it-alone attitude. For example, at his convention when he said, I alone can fix it. You know, in the 90s, I said the same thing about America's health care system, and it didn't work out so well for me either. But speaking of health, Donald has been very concerned about mine, very concerned. He actually sent a car to bring me here tonight. Actually, it was a hearse. But I kind of want to just put the information out there so everybody can draw their own conclusions, and you can judge our relative health. We've each released our medical records. My blood pressure is 100 over 70. His is unbelievably great. My cholesterol is 189. His is presidential. My heart rate is 72 beats per minute. His is the most beats ever, or the least beats ever, whichever sounds best. But Donald really is as healthy as a horse. You know, the one Vladimir Putin rides around on. But I can say without fear of contradiction tonight that I will be the healthiest and youngest woman ever to serve as president. But this has really been a strange campaign. You saw it last night, you saw it again tonight. Donald has attacked me for a life in public service, and I didn't get that at first. I kind of get it now. As he told Howard Stern, he doesn't like it when women have been around for more than 35 years. But Donald, we have so much more in common than actually you may realize. For example, I've tried to inspire young people by showing them that with resilience and hard work, anything is possible, and you're doing the same. A third-grade teacher told me that one of her students refused to turn in his homework because it was under audit. And here's another similarity. The Republican National Committee isn't spending a dime to help either one of us. So tonight, let's embrace the spirit of the evening. Let's come together, remember what unites us, and just rip on Ted Cruz. I hope you enjoyed my remarks tonight. I said no to some jokes that I thought were over the line. But I suppose you can judge for yourself on WikiLeaks in the next few days. Donald will tell us after the benediction whether he accepts that this dinner is over. He has to wait and see. But there's nothing funny about the stakes in this election.
Back now with my panel, John Phillips, Simone Sanders, Gina Loudon, and Bakari Sellers. So, Bakari, let's talk about Governor Chris Christie, a key figure in the Trump campaign. He was one of the first to endorse Donald Trump after the primary, and he's the chairman of the transition team. Even played, Hillary Clinton for Trump's debate prep. But we haven't seen him publicly with Donald Trump lately. Are they distancing themselves from each other?
I think they are. I mean, I think that Chris Christie has fallen greatly since 2012 when a lot of people thought that he was the only challenger for the Republican nomination to Mitt Romney. And then the irony is pretty thick in this because Chris Christie is the one who was prosecuting the case against Hillary Clinton at the Salem witch trials, also known as the Republican National Convention, when he was chanting out guilty, guilty, guilty. And now you see he has his own legal quagmire here that he has to deal with. Chris Christie is very, very talented. I don't think anyone doubts that. He's a shrewd prosecutor and lawyer, and he would be an asset to Donald Trump over these last 3 weeks. With that being said, he hasn't taken care of home, and I think that you've seen he's one of the worst governors in this last term of any governor in the United States, be them Democrat or Republican.
John, do you agree with that?
No, not at all. And in terms of the report that we just heard, have you ever met anyone from New Jersey that doesn't drop the F-bomb every other word? That seems like it's pretty much par for the course.
Yeah, my producer's one of them, and she's saying 20 of them in my ear right now. But go on.
But Chris Christie's been helpful as a closer in a presidential election before in the past. It just happened to be for Barack Obama last time around after Hurricane Sandy hit. Look, New Jersey is not in play. That's not a swing state. Hillary Clinton is going to win that state. That's not where Donald Trump is focusing his time or attention. He's focusing it obviously in the state of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, with all the purple states that we've all been following for the last few weeks. So I'm not surprised that Chris Christie is in front and center.
So, John, do you think no matter what happens on November 8th, that Trump's surrogates will be fine? And does that stand for Governor Christie as well?
Well, look, Chris Christie represents a very blue state. He's termed out as governor. There's really probably no place for him to go, maybe a U.S. Senate seat, but that's unlikely. So he was at the last stop on the subway anyway if he didn't win the Republican primary
Or
and
at the
go on
last
to be
exit on the
president.
bridge, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
There we go. Tip your
What,
waitress.
what about Speaker Paul Ryan, who he's faced a lot of backlash for not defending or campaigning with Donald Trump? Do you think he's going to be fine, John?
Look, there's been a lot of discord within the Republican Party for some time now. If you go back to when Bob Michaels was Republican leader, he was taken out by Newt Gingrich for this very same reason. Newt Gingrich was taken out as the Republican leader. Then you fast forward to John Boehner. He was always dealing with these problems. If Kevin McCarthy would have been elevated to Speaker, he would have had these problems. And now Paul Ryan is experiencing this. And I think the main reason is because Republican benefactors have a very different idea of where the party should be politically than Republican voters. And the way these people have been handling it through the years, Republican leaders, is that they've been saying one thing in their district and doing a different thing in Washington. And as what you saw in this primary, in this Republican primary, is you saw voters saying, you know what? We're over that. We're over you people saying one thing to us and doing a different thing in Washington, D.C. And that's why Donald Trump was able to win the primary. And I think that's going to be something that all of these leaders are going to have to be cognizant of in the future.
It's what us common folk, refer to as talking out of both sides of your neck, right?
Exactly.
So Vice President Joe Biden didn't hold back today. Listen to this.
If we let Donald Trump somehow even get a significant minority of the vote, it says things to the rest of the world about us that are dangerous. I've traveled over 1,200,000 miles as Vice President of the United States. I go because I go to meet with heads of state, because when I speak to them, I speak for the President. I'm not the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense. They never have to wonder what I say is exactly what the President will do, because we have worked it out. And I have his confidence. And everywhere I go, this is not hyperbole, everywhere I go, I get asked by world leaders, this can't be true, is it?
So there's a real push from Democrats, Bakari, for Donald Trump to lose in a landslide to send a message, right, so that he cannot question the outcome as well. Do you think the Democrats can pull it off?
I hope so, and we're working damn hard to make sure that it's a mandate. And the reason we're working so hard to make sure it's a mandate is because this is not just beating Donald Trump the man. This is about beating racism, misogyny, xenophobia, bigotry, all of those elements that Donald Trump's campaign has embraced. And so this isn't just about beating Donald Trump in some election that's happening November 8th of this year. This is about beating back all of those concepts that so many people have worked hard and we thought that we stamped out. But apparently it's still alive and very, very well. And so I think that this election is more than just beating Donald Trump, the man who makes flippant comments, disrespectful comments, asinine comments. This is about beating a mentality. This is about beating every ism that has held back handicapped black people, Hispanic people, women in this country for so long. And so, yeah, we're going to work really hard to make sure that he feels this, and everyone who has that same mindset feels this as well.
Gina, you disagree. You don't think that he's hit on all those topics that Bakari said on xenophobia, racism, homophobia, and on and on?
I mean, I've read a lot about those kinds of things in the Podesta emails that came from Hillary Clinton and her staff, but I haven't really seen that from Mr. Trump. I think a lot of things have been twisted. The words that came out of his mouth have been twisted by the media or taken completely out of context to try to allude that that's the case. But when I look at Mr. Trump's staff, I look at, obviously Katrina Pearson. I mean, I could go down the list of people that Mr. Trump has elevated of all sorts of races. We know that Mr. Trump hires more women than he does men.
Referring more to
more.
his words and messaging than people he's paying.
But I mean,
just because Donald Trump has, just because Donald Trump has.
Let Gina finish her thought, and then I'll let you get in.
Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead, Gina.
Let me finish. This is the thing. It's the difference, and this is what I say again and again, between actions and words. We can construe Mr. Trump's words however you want to construe them, but his actions and the fact that he, unlike the Clinton Foundation, pays women more than he pays women.
The reason his words are so important is because he doesn't have a political resume to draw on. And so people are putting probably maybe a little bit more weight on his words because he doesn't have a history in politics. So they're trying to figure out where he's going to go from what he says. Go ahead, Simone.
No,
I think it's important to always consider the context.
No, I think words matter. Look, Donald Trump is running for president of the United States, okay? So his words are extremely important because as president, your words could launch a war.
Actions?
Your words could, I mean, we can talk about Donald Trump's actions, the fact that he's discriminated against everybody possible. You know, the fact that he's discriminated against African Americans, Latinos in this country, Muslims. He's attacked Gold Star families. He's attacked
what discrimination?
Women. Pardon me, are you talking about the fact that Donald Trump has
When has he attacked women? What evidence do you have that he's ever attacked a woman?
The sexual assault allegations from the 10 to 12 women.
Those are allegations. That's not evidence.
Okay, this is what. Wait, no, Don. This is what I'll say. I'll say that.
That was Bakari, not me. But go on.
Yeah, because I'm itching. I'm itching to jump in over here, Simone. Tag me.
I'm a tag you.
We all sound alike. It's Friday. Sorry. Go ahead.
It is extremely important that Donald Trump has to answer for what it is that he said, but also what it is that he's done. And I'm sorry to name that Donald Trump has some women on staff and has some people of color on staff isn't enough. There are people with black friends that are racist. There are people with, that are very close with women that have elevated women in their companies that are misogynistic, that are sexist. So we have to go with the facts. And the facts that we've seen from Donald Trump is that he has spewed racist rhetoric and he has demonstrated that is his mentality and that's what's around him.
Let Bakari get in.
It's just not true.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, because Gina was asking one simple question about actions and Donald Trump's actions and when has he discriminated. And so I decided that we would recite a few facts about his actions. We can go back to his housing discrimination lawsuits in which he had to settle not one but two because he literally marked C on applications for colored. We can go through the Central Park 5 in which he took full-page ads out asking for these five young men who were actually innocent of this crime.
Wait. You said Donald Trump had nothing to do with taking out ads in newspapers for the Central Park 5?
It was not Donald Trump himself. It was not Donald Trump himself.
Oh my God, that's so not true.
And we've hashed this out in the facts are true in the media.
Let me finish, though. Let me finish, because I actually want to use the words of the Speaker of the House and Paul Ryan, who said it was textbook racism when Donald Trump said that Judge Curiel could simply not rule in a case because of his Mexican heritage, and he's from Indiana, excuse me. And so to say that there are no actions to match up with the things that I was talking about, to actually mock a disabled reporter, yes, those are actions.
He did not do that, and the proof is out there that he did not do that.
And you wanted to list the number, the last point, you wanted to list the number of black people who have senior positions on Donald Trump's campaign. You named Katrina Pearson. I bet you can't name two.
I could go on all day. Omarosa. I mean, I could go on all day. I'm not going to play into your little test
where's
here.
the third? Wait, Bakari, can she name a third? Who's the third? Omarosa and Katrina are the only two black people Donald Trump has on staff.
People in the studio are even laughing. So anyway, listen, I got to get back to Gina because Gina, it is important. It is important that facts do matter. And you were saying that Donald Trump is not responsible for taking an ad out, and that he didn't. Something else you said that he didn't do that. That's not. That's just. Yeah, you didn't discriminate.
How do you answer for Hillary Clinton saying that they have
we're talking about Donald
Trump.
So
answer for Hillary Clinton?
Okay, that's fine. It's a great pivot, but I need to be
Mr.
factual
Trump
here.
All the time.
You just can't spit out to the audience that those things are not true.
There's zero evidence about the so-called misogyny of Mr. Trump. There's zero evidence. There are a lot of allegations
that are campaign saying grab them by the vagina.
Oriented.
Do we have the bus?
You've seen that? You've seen that?
Okay.
What about Mrs. Clinton and the fact that she defended a child rapist and actually blamed the victim, the 12-year-old child? What about that? What about the
anyway,
you know what this is, Don? This is we have 19 days to election day. This is what this is. We've got 19 days to election day, and Donald Trump is flailing in the polls. Okay.
Let me agree with Bakari.
Okay, guys, it's been a long week. Stand by. We're gonna reset.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Our breaking news tonight, the New York Times reporting that 2 women are accusing Donald Trump of touching them inappropriately. Donald Trump is denying those accusations at this point. They are accusations. And I want to bring in now the former Trump campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, Katrina Pearson, the national spokeswoman for Trump's campaign, CNN political contributor Hillary Rosen, a Clinton supporter, and political commentator Peter Beinart, contributor to The Atlantic. So I want you guys to watch. This is Jessica Leeds. Here's what she said happened aboard a flight.
We just chatted back and forth, nothing particular. It wasn't until they cleared the meal that somehow or another the armrest in the seat disappeared, and it was a real shock when all of a sudden his hands were all over me. He started encroaching on my space, and I hesitate to use this expression, but I'm going to. And that is, he was like an octopus. It was like he had 6 arms. He was all over the place. And if he had stuck with the upper part of the body, I might not have gotten that upset. But it's when he started putting his hand up my skirt, and that was it. That was it. I was out of there.
Corey, do you think this is damaging, considering at the debate that he said he had never committed sexual assault or inappropriately touched anyone?
Well, you know, I listened to your guest who was just here talking about the legal ramifications and the fact that you have a woman who is in first class, where it's a fairly open area, making an accusation of someone who's saying it's okay if you would have just touched the top half of my body. Clearly she wasn't offended by that, or at least intimated that that would have been okay with her for some rationale reason if this even took place. I think the whole thing, the timing is quite speculative at best. I think it's very difficult if you've been on an airplane. I know you've been on an airplane sitting in first class, that someone would notice if an octopus was grabbing you, and all of a sudden she's so enraged by this, she gets up and goes back to the back of the plane. I think there's a lot of holes in this story. And Donald Trump has said it didn't happen.
What she said was, if he had stuck to the upper part of my body, I might not have gotten that upset. But it's when he put his hand up my skirt. And some people saw what Paul was saying, as I had to, move on. Obviously, there's a time thing, as victim shaming. You don't see that as victim shaming. Who was it? Was that Hillary? Who's laughing over there? Is that Hillary?
I was laughing.
Why were you laughing, Hillary?
Oh, because I feel like, Corey, we're going to try and split hairs on every one of these. We just got posted a story tonight by People magazine, reporter Natasha Stroidoff, who has spent a lot of time with the Trumps, who said that Donald Trump, did this similar thing to her at Mar-a-Lago when Melania was upstairs. I mean,
that's another allegation, by the way, Hillary. I have to say, we haven't
absolutely a first-person allegation from an actual reporter. But here's my point, which is Donald Trump sort of brought this on himself in the other night by saying, no, I've never done this, unwanted advances, treated women, with such disregard, assaulted them without their consent. And because he said that, all of these women that he did this to are now saying, wait, you did it to me. Wait, you did it to me. So, Corey, you can try and pick each one of these apart, but you're just never going to be able to convince people that this huge group of women who all got just pissed off that Trump said that to everybody else.
Do you want to respond, Corey, or can I move on?
Look, I was only reiterating what your guest earlier said, that particular incident on the airplane, which Donald Trump said never happened, would have probably been seen
my question was,
on
do you
a
think
flight.
It was problematic, considering.
Look, I don't think it happened. Donald Trump said it didn't happen, and I think other people on the plane would have seen something like that occur if an octopus was assaulting a person on a plane.
We have, by my count now, 12 different women who have claimed that Donald Trump has done inappropriate things, many of them quite similar to the things he boasted about, groping in particular. So, I mean, I guess my question for you, Corey and Katrina, do you really want to spend your evenings for the next few weeks trying to pretend that all of these 12 women are lying? I mean, don't you have something better to do?
I don't know how Katrina feels about it, because we haven't gotten a response.
Fair enough.
Do you believe, Katrina, do you believe Jessica Leeds?
First, let me just say that this is the exact same New York Times that WikiLeaks has already posted emails from reporters.
But my question is, initially, you can talk about that, but my initial question is, do you believe Jessica Leeds?
Second, I would like to address There were several things just said that I'd like to respond
Katrina,
to.
I would like you to
happy
answer my
address your
question, and if
Don.
you're going to go on and pivot, you can do that, but can you answer my question directly first?
This is what happens to Trump people.
Okay,
What's your question,
Jessica,
Don?
my question, this is not what happens to Trump people. It's what happens to everyone who comes on and they don't answer the question that I asked, and they immediately pivot to something else. So my question to you is, do you believe Jessica Lee's account that this happened 30 years ago on an airplane?
I do not believe it at all. It is 100% patently false. And as I was saying, this is the exact same New York Times that tried the same stunt back in March. And then those women came forward and debunked that article. But this is why this story is particularly ridiculous, to answer your question more thoroughly. We're talking about the early 1980s, Don. Seriously? Back then, you had planes, what? A DC-9, a DC-10, an MD-80, 707, and maybe an L-1011. But she said specifically this was to New York. And this is what's important, because so we can X out the L-1011 and the DC-10. Guess what? First-class seats have fixed armrests. So what I can tell you about her story, if she was groped on a plane,
Katrina,
it wasn't by Donald
we'll
Trump,
get
and
our
it certainly
aviation
wasn't in first
expert.
class.
We'll get our aviation expert here to talk
How
about
can
the
it
airplanes.
happen? Explain how that happens. There are fixed seats on first class. So if it happened, it wasn't by Donald Trump, and
Katrina,
it wasn't
there are
in
more
first
than
class.
6 seats
Donald
in first
Trump had
class.
his own plane
Sometimes
in the
there are.
80s.
I said fixed.
Yeah. Oh, fixed. I thought she said 6 seats. But listen, I'm not gonna.
F-I-X-E-D.
Okay, we don't know what kind of plane they were on. We don't know what the seats were like. So I'm not gonna argue about that. That's not all the options. Okay.
Donald Trump had his own plane
Katrina,
in the 80s. He
I'm not going to argue about an
doesn't
airplane
fly.
now.
He doesn't do that.
Let's talk about the
Why
woman
would
here who
these
says she's a
women,
victim.
what
Ask me
do
about
these
her
women
story.
have to
It's
gain
false.
by coming out?
Yeah.
Right? What do these women have to
Here's
gain
why
by
she
coming
said
out
she
and making
finally.
fame?
Here's why she said she finally
Fame?
spoke
That
out.
woman look like she's looking for fame? I don't think so.
She also told someone at the time.
Yeah, most of them
Here's
are.
why she said.
I started telling my story about a year and a half ago when it became apparent that Trump was actually running for president. And I started telling my friends, let me tell you what this guy is all about. I would like to think that sharing this story would make a difference both in the election and the society's view of women, to change some of the behavior, the sexual behavior between men and women in both directions.
All right. So you guys go on. You were saying why she might, speculating about why she would come out with this. That's why she said she came out with it.
I mean, well, she came out with it like so many other people in the past. You attack Donald Trump, and the media puts you on TV to tell your fake story just to get debunked a few days later. That's exactly what's happening here. This story did not happen. I just told you why.
What do you fear? You will never overcome it. You're all over the place. You will not accomplish it. You go out there and you give it everything.
So, Katrina, the
Thanks,
first question goes to you. These comments that Trump said on tape, unbeknownst to him, it's causing this huge civil war now within the Republican Party. Why is Mr. Trump exacerbating things by tweeting things? You know, he tweeted an attack about Paul Ryan just this morning.
Well, because, Carol, the civil war, as you want to call it, in the Republican Party did not last week. This has been ongoing for at least the last 8 years, because you have leadership who always wants to run at any sign of controversy, whereas the people of the party want to continue to fight, and it's one of the reasons why Donald Trump became the nominee.
But these comments, Katrina, are driving women away. The latest polls show that Mr. Trump is in free fall right now. His attacks aren't working. His apologies aren't working. So why doesn't he try something else?
Well, look, we have plenty of time left in this race, and again, this is something that the media is heavily focused on. When we keep
People have already started voting.
When we keep hearing from the left and the media how we want to talk about substance, for some reason we keep talking about Democrat Donald Trump from 2005. People do want to talk about the issues, Carol, and this is truly unfortunate. Mr. Trump has apologized, as you mentioned. He said it was embarrassing, as most people would be embarrassed when their own private conversations would be released. But at the end of the day, we have very serious issues to address in this country about who they are today. Donald Trump today is a grandfather and someone who wants to make America great again.
Okay, so Angela, Mike Pence, Mr. Trump's running mate, says as a Christian, he can forgive Mr. Trump. Listen to what he said at a rally last night.
I think the question of the news person was, you know, after all the the things that have come out, how can you as a Christian go forward? I said, look, I believe in my faith that we're called to aspire to live a godly life. But my faith also tells me that we all fall short. I don't condone what was said. In fact, I said so over the weekend, but I believe in grace.
So, Angela, do you believe in grace?
I absolutely believe in grace, Carol, but I'm going to tell you what, Mike Pence is exactly right. We do fall short, and Donald Trump on November 8th will fall short of the 270 electoral votes that he needs to win this election. And it's for one reason, and so many others, but the latest is his endorsement, frankly, of rape culture. We tried to tell people how dangerous this man was when he put out this tweet. 26,000 unreported sexual assaults in the military, only 238 convictions. What did these geniuses expect when they put men and women together? Well, we now know what Donald Trump expects to happen when we put him in the room with a woman, unguarded, when we put him in the room with a woman, when he's doing locker room talk, although he's offended athletes all over this country and probably around the globe. This is not locker room talk, Carol. This is rape culture, and any endorsement of it is us perpetuating rape culture. So we have to frankly own this. These women are absolutely right. This is not okay. I've never been a victim of sexual assault, but I can't imagine what it would be like to be watching someone on the debate stage making light of something like this, making light of not just comments, but frankly his actions that have been discussed over and over again by women who he's offended in his boardrooms. This man has been sued 4,056 times. And some of those lawsuits, Carol, had everything to do with how he treated women who worked for him, including sexual harassment and discrimination. This is a problem, and this man is too dangerous to go forward. We know that he's temperamentally unfit, and we certainly know he's unqualified. He does not have the temperament to do this, and he's only perpetuating rape culture.
Katrina, Mr. Trump.
Carol, first,
Oh, go ahead, Katrina. Respond to that.
That's quite an exaggeration on Angela's part,
No,
but I
it's
do
not.
quite find it rich that we have Democrats and the left talking about rape culture when they're the ones backed fully by Hollywood. This rape culture is purported by none other than the entertainment industry, none other than hip-hop music, which you can hear on local radio
Katrina,
stations, as well as network television, which actually pushes this. This is a bigger issue here. We are talking about a society who puts women on a pedestal because of a sex tape. And then we have the audacity to claim that all of a sudden there's this moral compass. This is something that Mr. Trump said, who he thought was in private, that came to light for crying out loud, as he was a part of that hip-hop
rape culture. Let me
Rape
stop you
culture
right
is an
here.
issue in private and public.
Stop, because this is important, because it is a larger issue, and I do agree with you there, Katrina. We should talk about this, because the way that sexual assault is portrayed in some Hollywood movies is wrong, and it is, and I agree with you there. But that doesn't doesn't make what Mr. Trump said right. Right? So to me, when you say these things,
No, you're absolutely right.
No,
but
I don't know
exactly
if you really
why
mean
he
them.
apologized.
I don't know whether you really mean them or if you're just deflecting to excuse Mr. Trump's comments. And there's a difference.
No, you're exactly right. Then that's exactly why he apologized and said he was embarrassed by those comments. But
What
this
about his
really is a
actions?
distraction from the larger issue. We're talking about two people, who they are today, not who they are in the past. And I know the left wants to go digging through the garbage to try to destroy someone's character by using their
that's
past.
what you all are
because what we
actually
should be talking about is Hillary Clinton, because she wants to talk about the issues, Angela. Let's talk about the red line in the sand. Aleppo is a humanitarian crisis.
I can't, because
thanks
Donald
to that
Trump
red
isn't
line in
talking
the
about
sand.
that.
Let's talk about Libya, the Russian reset. Let's talk about her using.
Okay, let's stop right here. I want to talk about
using the State Department as a
something else with Dana
concierge
Bash
for the foundation.
I want to talk to Dana Bash now. Dana, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, that conversation was going nowhere, so I'm going to talk to you about the Republican Civil War, because
soldiers who are infiltrating the refugee program coming into the United States. Mr. Trump does not want that. He does not want people like what happened in San Bernardino to exploit the visa system coming into this country and killing Americans. Mr. Trump does not want to allow individuals to come into this country and essentially create homegrown terrorism.
Well, so how does this work? So it's no longer focused on Muslims, but then instead it's looking at people coming from countries who train and equip terrorists. Before he said Muslims, and so now he's not going to characterize it as Muslims? Immigrants,
you're
and I'm
gonna see
talking
is a
about
policy
immigrants. You
put
say
out-
it's about immigration. I'm talking about immigration. I'm talking about visitors coming to the country.
Well, right, but the initial reports were all Muslims, even extending it to American Muslims, which didn't make any sense. And we can go back to that footage and look. This had nothing to do with American Muslims, or even soldiers for that matter. But Mr. Trump is going to be refining his policy, putting out more specific details, which everyone's been asking for. But there has been no change. He still does not want to allow individuals to come into this country who cannot be vetted.
Individuals or Muslims?
Well, it doesn't matter really where you're coming from, except for the fact of the terrorist nations, which is something that he is adding to this policy to make it more clear that if you are coming from a hostile nation and you cannot be vetted, absolutely you should not come into this country. But individuals are the same. We cannot allow individuals to come into this country that cannot be vetted.
Okay, but you're talking about terrorist countries, and what we've seen is individuals who are from Belgium, who are from France. I mean, those you wouldn't.
That's the point.
So you're talking about. So explain who is not allowed in, and what countries we're talking about, and also how you're dealing. I mean, in this latest.
An individual that cannot be vetted. As we know, ISIS has exploited passport systems in some of these countries. The individual that came in on the K-1 visa, they didn't even know where she was from initially. If you cannot be vetted, you should not be allowed into this country. And I think that speaks volumes. If we are allowing people into this country where we do not know their intentions, we do not know where they're from, and if they're coming from hostile territories, that is extremely dangerous right now.
How is it not a change if before he was talking about Muslim immigrants, and now you're saying individuals, and the reporting that we have coming from Gloria Borger and Jim Acosta is that he's not talking about Muslims, he's not emphasizing that label?
That is a part of the label. So what I'm saying, again, is the initial ban on Muslims immigrating into the country that cannot be vetted, he still does not want to come into this country. If you can be vetted, it's a different story. Mr. Trump is talking about those that potentially are a threat to this nation. I mean, that is one of the things that the federal government is supposed to be doing, and that is protecting Homeland Security. So what he's going to be doing is putting specifics out there so that everyone is clear that he is not talking about Americans abroad or soldiers or anything like that. This is simply an immigration position, not to mention a national...
You can come into the country, is what you're saying.
Well, even in his initial statement, when he said, until our politicians can figure out what's going on, that's exactly what that means. But our politicians have told us we cannot vet these people coming across the border right now, and we're bringing them in by the tens of thousands. There is a problem and a disconnect between the politicians and the people of this country.
So Christians, now, how would that work? I mean, what is the religious aspect here? If they're Christian and they can't necessarily be vetted, then that's a problem too, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, if you are coming into this country and you cannot be vetted, then you should not be allowed in until you can be vetted. This is not rocket science. This is a man who wants to protect the homeland, unlike what we see with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton for 15 years have allowed our borders to be wide open, using taxpayers' dollars to bring in refugees and others into this country, creating homegrown terrorism. That has to stop.
What is the vetting process?
That's a great question. I'm so glad we could get there. That is a question for the FBI and the CIA, who have told us that they do not have a vetting process. That is something that, as president, Mr. Trump wants to get with Congress to filter that out, because we do not have one yet.
Oh, okay, can you sort of flesh that out a little bit for me? Because you're talking about Donald Trump getting together with Congress. So this isn't actually his vetting process. This is something he wants to work out with entities that he currently believes are failing at vetting.
Donald Trump is not talking about the vetting process. Donald Trump isn't talking about the vetting process. Donald Trump is talking about individuals coming into this country, period. That's it.
Okay, you're talking about whether or not they can be vetted.
Until our politicians can figure out what's going on. The vetting process needs to take place. The FBI and the CIA, we have departments and agencies that are supposed to be doing this, and they're not.
But he said he doesn't trust the vetting process, so what is his proposal to address that process?
We don't have a vetting process, Brianna. We don't have a vetting process. If you
Donald Trump
listen to the
doesn't
FBI
have a vetting
director
process?
and the CIA, No, the FBI and the CIA
But
do
what
not
is-
have a vetting process.
What is
They
Donald
are
Trump's
trying to
proposal
figure it
for a
out.
vetting process?
Mr. Trump has already said that he wants to make sure no one comes into this country unless they can be vetted. And the CIA and the FBI and the intelligence agencies need to figure out a process before we allow anyone else to come into this country, creating a second generation of homegrown terrorism.
Okay, I want to talk more about that vetting process. I think there's still some details that we need to work out on that. Katrina, stay with me. We'll talk about it after a break. And we are back now with Trump campaign national spokeswoman Katrina Pearson and this breaking news that Donald Trump is going to drop Muslim from his proposed immigrant ban. So I do want to get into some of the details of this with you, Katrina. This is a ban not on Muslims, but rather, according to our reporting, a ban on immigration coming from countries with known terrorism links, training, and equipping. I'm still unclear what countries this includes.
Well, as mentioned, Mr. Trump is going to release more specifics to answer all of your questions.
So, but he will then
right now,
describe the countries that he's talking about specifically. Is he going to be providing those details?
Absolutely, he's going to provide those details. And to our discussion earlier, we do not have a vetting process in place. That's according to the CIA and the FBI. So the question begs is, what vetting process is Hillary Clinton talking about, since she wants to bring in tens of thousands of more of these refugees into our middle-income communities, because these refugees are not being resettled in the affluent communities or in the politicians' neighborhoods. And so maybe she needs to tell us what the vetting process is that makes it okay to move these people into the neighborhoods of the United States.
And I do think that's a question certainly for her national spokesperson. But since I have you here, I want to know what the vetting process would be for Donald Trump. You're talking about the CIA and the FBI, institutions that clearly Donald Trump does not agree with how they're vetting right now. You're saying he should get together with Congress. It is controlled by his party at this point in time.
Well, there is.
So what are his ideas about vetting?
There is no disagreement with the intelligence agencies on the vetting process, because the intelligence agencies have said that there isn't a vetting process, and that is the problem. Whereas Hillary Clinton says there is, you have the FBI director and the CIA saying that there isn't. So Mr. Trump wants to stop people from coming into this country.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague, or a post on Facebook that all your friends will see, or a paper for your English class that you just have to get an A on, or
This is what it is. The vetting begins. Graphical information. And this
FBI, who says those are work.
In fairness, Katrina, the process I described involves federal U.S. agencies. It may start.
Absolutely, which is exactly why the CIA,
the Homeland Security Department, then if they're approved, they undergo a medical screening, a match with sponsor agencies.
National spokesperson Katrina Pearson and DNC committee member and Clinton supporter Robert Zimmerman. Good to see you.
Good evening.
So let me just start with you on this, Robert. Do you admit she had terrible 2 weeks?
No, she didn't have terrible 2 weeks.
She didn't?
Look,
12
reality
states.
is, look,
12. Larry Sabato states just got moved further to the right.
Excuse me. Let me point out to you that Larry Sabato, in his report with his new map, pointed out that Hillary Clinton certainly has the advantage of winning the election over Donald Trump. More paths to get to.
But
more
2
paths
weeks,
to get to
last Monday,
270.
he was on this program saying she's looking great. Trump's in big trouble. And because the polling from her collapse and basket full of deplorables hadn't caught up.
Well, first of all, there wasn't a collapse. Let's also understand, Megan, I mean, I don't want to disappoint you, but you should be, in fact, maybe this will put your mind at ease, but Hillary Clinton in today's national poll, NBC's national poll, is up by 5 percentage points. But
now,
let's
let me
assume,
stop you right there. As you well know, it isn't about my personal feelings.
I know that.
It's about the facts.
And the facts are, Megan, that even if you take the worst projection, you assume that Hillary Clinton has 16 of the standard blue states for 191 electoral votes. That's lower than anyone's projecting. The battleground states in question, according to 538.com and others, give her a 70% chance of winning those states.
Okay. 538, with all due respect to Nate Silver, has been schizophrenic this election. They nailed it with Obama last time around. They've been, with all due respect, all all over the place.
Every
You
poll-
believe one day, the next day, completely the reverse. Let me get Katrina in here.
Okay.
Katrina, your candidate has had boatloads full of trouble, right, since he launched this campaign. But you tell me whether this has been the best 8-10-day period of the entire run for him.
Well, Megan, I think this has been a fantastic time period for Mr. Trump. I mean, we keep wanting to remind people that Hillary Clinton has spent tens of millions of dollars in many of these states, and some that Larry didn't mention, like Colorado, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Look at Virginia and Maine, for crying out loud. Mr. Trump is doing extremely well, which is exactly
Virginia was typically red, but
many
isn't
of these
anymore.
models have shifted.
But let me ask you this. So understanding that he had this great time, what does that mean for his debate strategy? Because even though he's had a great 10 days, he's had like a year and a half of controversy preceding it.
Well, look, he's going to prepare the way Mr. Trump does. He's absolutely committed to going out there and campaigning in all of these states for all voters, something we haven't seen for a Republican candidate in a very long time. And he is ready to go up against Hillary Clinton. And as we know, Hillary Clinton does have a record of failure as Secretary of State, particularly when it comes to the hot topics that many people are concerned about.
Katrina,
like
I think you did your
like
analysis.
The economy and like trade.
Excuse me,
It's
Katrina.
extremely important for Mr. Trump, someone that's going to get up there and actually talk to the American public about what he wants to do.
Let him
That's been extremely different
let him
from
make his
what
point, and then I'll give you the floor back. Go ahead,
Katrina,
Robert.
take a breath. Here's the bottom line. Katrina, I think you learned your political analysis at Trump University, because what we've seen in this election...
You're the rhapsodic one, George.
First of all, it's Robert. You've got a fixation on George Zimmerman, which says something else. The other point is what makes this election so unique is you see an unprecedented number of leading Republican experts in Homeland Security, in fighting terrorism, in our military, including now President George Herbert Walker Bush, now standing up and supporting Hillary Clinton because they regard Donald Trump as reckless, dangerous, and an incompetent
All right, let her
neophyte.
respond. What do you make in particular, because news broke overnight that the former president, George H.W. Bush, is planning to vote for Hillary Clinton, Katrina?
Well, look, I think everyone is entitled to support whomever they want. There are many Americans who applaud the Bushes and respect their service.
Not
and
Donald
if
Trump,
it's
who
true
attacked
that
them and maligned them.
some of the Bushes are going to be supporting, if it is true that some of the Bushes are going to be supporting Hillary Clinton, then I think that really offers vindication for a lot of the Tea Party goers who felt like Republicans were starting to govern as Democrats.
How about the generals who are supporting? How about the generals who are stepping up and supporting Hillary Clinton over George Bush?
The establishment is going to stick with the establishment. And
Like
what
our
does it
military?
say when you have Republicans in a record number turn out for Donald Trump, and you have former leaders of the party just essentially slap them in the face? At the same time, Megan, everyone's going to have to choose who best suits their values, and if Hillary Clinton represents George Bush's values, then that's his prerogative.
Well, clearly,
I gotta go.
Vladimir Putin
See, she was
represents
thinking of George
Bush's
H.W.
values.
Bush, Robert. She wasn't thinking of George Zimmerman. So
Well,
it's great to see you both. I got to leave it at that.
The California Medical Association, representing 41,000.
GameRanks presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and some first impressions of the latest games releasing. As always, I'm Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Battlefield 1, a game that's definitely seen its fair share of a hype train that has also had a series that has, had some issues. I still very much remember Battlefield 4 and its rocky launch. So yeah, I was excited for Battlefield 1, but I didn't go in with massive expectations or anything, and I still came out genuinely really enjoying this game. This is a good game. First off, let's talk about the single player, because single player often just gets so left behind with these types of games, and thankfully I can say that I was genuinely surprised by the single player offering here. The campaign mode here is shockingly solid. It's definitely not really amazing by any means, but it's still just a solid offering and it's fun to play through. So the way it's set up is that there are 6 different war stories to play through. These are completely separate adventures telling small stories across the war from different sides. Most of those war stories average around 4 chapters within them to play through that are bookended by cutscenes and lots of story moments, and genuinely they're pretty well put together. While 1 or 2 may seem a little weak to some people, what you have here is really cool small short stories. It's like a big anthology on World War I, and I think DICE did a really good job trying to convey all different sides and perspectives of the war and just generally how terrible it was and how shitty it was and what it did to people. And you get a little bit of everything. You get to play an Italian heavy machine gunner who has to save his brother, a daring, dashing pilot who lied his way into the force, a general foot soldier basically living out hell itself, a tank gunner, and all these different perspectives just make it feel refreshing to play through. Like I said, it's not perfect, and at the end of the day, if you really break it down, it is kind of like a glorified tutorial, but the presentation, the way the short stories are presented, and just the overall production quality just make it feel fun to play through. It is very short. You are going to be able to knock it out in a few hours, but I gotta say, I just do really like it. It really does ooze quality. It has this whole kind of, like, it romanticizes aspect of the war in certain ways that some people might not like, but it makes it all feel very adventurous and fun and exciting while still keeping the terribleness of it. They did a really good job walking the line between that. It's just a shame that people will be able to blow through it in a few hours, but it's also refreshing coming from Battlefront, which didn't have any single player anything at all. That shouldn't be grounds for me to give it a free pass by any means, but the way I look at it is that I mostly play multiplayer, so to have a single player bonus that's this decent is good. Before I go into multiplayer, I do really want to mention the visuals for a second, because they're pretty damn fantastic. The recorded version I have here, I was playing on Xbox One, and for a console, it still looks really damn good. There's a lot going on, there's some really nice effects, the lighting is great and very, very much stylized, really kind of setting the mood and the tone and kind of nailing the actual look of the maps and the levels in the game. And the destructibility is really cool. It's something I definitely enjoy in these games. The fact that you can just blow up anything, shoot a shotgun through some sheetrock walls, or run over a building with a tank, anything you really want to do, you could pretty much destroy here, and I like that. While not everything is destructible, there is a lot of stuff you can destroy here to your liking, and I enjoy that shit. Now, in terms of multiplayer, it's very difficult to review Battlefield multiplayer because it's really about how it stacks up in a few weeks, maybe months, or even years' time. But the most important things, at least with the before you buy, at first glance, yes, as of right now, the servers are all working, they're all working up to par. And do I think the multiplayer is good and fun? Yes, I think it definitely is. It is very, very much Battlefield. It surprisingly doesn't feel too much different from your standard Battlefield fare. I'm also a little bit disappointed because there is still a reliance on automatic weapons in a war where there wasn't that many. But of course, EA and DICE had to make some concessions to really make it fun and still fast-paced. But I do like that single-shot weapons and bolt-action rifles do feel more effective here, and when you use them, they are really satisfying. And you can get by using them. You don't feel like you're at a disadvantage for using a bolt-action or even any sort of semi-automatic. You still feel competent and you can still hold your own, and I like that a lot. There's tons of vehicles, and all the tanks really kind of feel differently, and also I think it's worth noting that the planes handle very well. Aerial combat is incredibly fun this time around, the way they did it. They did change the way airplanes handle quite a bit. You know, it actually feels like there's a little bit less control behind it, but it does still make it much more fun, and dogfighting in the air is probably one of my favorite parts of the game. The fresh new multiplayer offering that I enjoy the most is definitely Operations. Operations is a mode to find a match based on what type of war front you want to fight on and what specific battle within them. Matchmaking is basically like you pick a spot on the map and choose which front and what battle you want to go through. These are pretty much conquest maps. They're large. You can have 40 or 60 players, which always feels chaotic, but to me is a ton of fun. And the coolest part, and don't laugh at me, okay, but they're educational. The way it starts, the map starts and gives you a breakdown of who's fighting this war, why they're fighting this battle, who's pitted up against who, and what really ultimately happens. It just gives you a little more context that I like, and since it doesn't get in the way, even if you're not crazy about that, it can easily be ignored. But for somebody that likes to pay attention, and if you enjoy this stuff, it's there for you, and it's cool. It's slick. Operations is also really cool because the losing side gets like a last-ditch effort, like a Zeppelin or a war train that comes in that can basically change the tide of the battle. It's worth noting, but you guys have probably seen already the fact that a warship or a Zeppelin can actually be downed and crash into the battlefield and actually change the
Braun Kitchen Collection presents Expected versus Unexpected.
Here's your breakfast. Hey guys, so peanut butter sandwiches are a staple in our house, especially for my picky eater Avery.
Another day, another peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Mom, that's my favorite. And when I started to realize how much peanut butter we were consuming, I looked at labels and I realized the only way to make sure I was getting the best peanut butter was to make it myself. I'm Meg and I'm passionate about finding ways to make life with kids easier in the kitchen. So here's what you'll need. roasted peanuts, honey, peanut oil, and salt. All right, so here's the lowdown on peanut butter. There's 3 different types. There's the commercially made stuff, there's natural, and there's organic. Commercially made peanut butter has a lot of additives, so it has sugar, different types of oils that you might not be a huge fan of. Natural peanut butter isn't necessarily regulated, so there could still be some pesticides. And organic peanuts are grown without the use of pesticides, but pretty much no matter what type of peanut you're using, it's susceptible to a mold that can prove harmful to your family. So the one type of peanut that I recommend is a Valencia peanut because it's grown in dry climate that's not as susceptible to that mold. So today I'm using my roasted nuts. So I found roasted nuts as opposed to just raw nuts, but if all you can find is raw nuts, you can simply pop them in your oven to heat them up a little bit. Next, I'm gonna add my honey. And this is optional, but I do think it adds a little bit of sweetness that the kids like. Usually I'm making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so I don't want it to be too sweet. And now I'm just gonna add a sprinkle of kosher salt, and that really helps bring out the flavor. All right, so I'm gonna put my top on and blend for a little bit before I add my oil. Homemade peanut butter can be kind of gritty, and the goal is to make it as smooth as possible, which is why I'm adding a little bit of oil, but it is optional. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start my food processor and then slowly drizzle it in. You really want to be patient with your peanut butter and process it until it's smooth. That may require that you scrape down and reprocess up to 5 times. So once your peanut butter is all processed, you're going to store it in an airtight container. So I'm using my mason jars because you guys know I'm obsessed with them.
G'day, welcome to the Simple Cooking Channel. Now get a... And now we want to blend this until it's as smooth as you want it to be. I like crunchy peanut butter, so I'm not going to make this super smooth.
With all the chemicals and preservatives, I do not recommend using a blender. Way too salty. And as you can see, it's still kind of powdery, but because the natural oils from the peanuts are coming out, it's kind of sticky and globbing up together. So it's not quite paste yet, but we're getting there. Now, first things first, we're going to add in a little bit of sugar, about a teaspoon. Now, I always add sugar because I feel that, and I'm also, well for me, more well. Try that container. And pop it in, because this is gorgeous. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. Check out my other videos at onepotchefshow.com. And until
use less energy by taking matters in your own hands. Or pause.
It's super simple to make. Hazelnut oil, vanilla extract, and salt. So I'm going to start by putting my hazelnuts into my food processor. I'm using roasted skinless hazelnuts. Anytime you're making something with a nut, you want to go the extra step and roast them. All I did is I just popped them in the oven at 375 for about 15 minutes. This really enhances that nutty flavor, and it's going to make anything that you're making with nuts taste that much better. So I'm going to let these go for about 2 or 3 minutes or until it becomes a smooth paste. So if we stopped right here, we would have hazelnut butter. But we're not making hazelnut butter. We are making hazelnut chocolate spread. So the next ingredient is really important. It's Dutch processed cocoa powder. Now take a look at regular natural cocoa powder. You can tell the difference? This one's clearly darker, but Dutch processed cocoa powder also has a mellower, smoother flavor, and it's just gonna taste even better than this stuff. So I'm gonna put that in there. And I'm just gonna add in our powdered sugar for a little sweetness. And then put the top back on the food processor and whip it until they're getting in there. Can't find it. You can use walnut oil or vegetable oil, but hazelnut oil not only enhances that more. Okay, we're done. So this Nutella can last up to 1 month in an airtight. Come on, crackers on cookies.